Hello YouTube. Welcome back. This is Balor Mage again, and we're going over my absolute degenerately overkill min-max version of this. I will say before I start, there is further I could take this still. I still don't have a corrupted Dialas. I still don't have a level 4 in power. I could do more things. But at this stage, I'm doing 12 mod, max effect, max pack size, mod. I can do Delirious, I can do tier 17s, I can do Ubers, I can do everything already on this build at this stage. Taking it any further than this seems pointless, although there is way more I could do. In fact, I've been doing all those things I mentioned except Ubers with a rarity support gem in just to get more gold and not even noticing. That's how OP we're at. So you can see in the background, running some of these 12 mod corrupted maps, I did have to make a few changes to our Holy Relic build. One, and the biggest change I had to make, was when you're doing 12 mod corrupted maps, almost every single map comes with reduced effect of auras. And that scales all the way up to sometimes as 106% reduced effect of auras, which meant I had to make some changes to the build. Specifically, I had to make some I had to get rid of everything that was an aura. I had to find a way to use my mana that was for wouldn't be ruined by aura effect. In doing that, I think this setup is at least as good as the normal aura setup. Potentially slightly better, potentially slightly worse. I'm not sure which one. It's very close. It's a very close setup. So we'll jump in game and we'll have a look at some of the things we changed. All right, so before I go through this, I want to note two things. One, we're doing this in town because otherwise the specters make a lot of noises and shouts and it's really annoying. But we had to do some changes. So we had to get rid of Malevolence. We had to get rid of Determination. They were both getting ruined by the reduced effect of aura mods. So in order to do that, I had to find something else to do with all my mana. I couldn't find enough to do with all my mana, so I ended up dropping Sovereignty entirely. I did have to keep this 12% RMR. And in its place, we are using Arctic Armor, Flesh and Stone, and Aspect of the Spider. So Aspect of the Spider is a really cool buff. It does not count as an aura. It hinders to reduce movement speed in a very large area, stacking very quickly, and the level 31 up to 4 with a debuff that also gives you 5% increased damage taken. It is a debuff, not an aura, so that debuff comes through at max effect. 20% increased damage taken on everything around me, plus a slow. That's really nice. Arctic Armor, really good for a few reasons. One, less physical damage taken. Physical is always going to be our weakest point, especially when you're reducing Determination. When you're getting rid of Determination entirely, physical becomes a problem. More importantly, or maybe equally importantly, it also makes you immune to freeze. So doing that upgrade or that change made it so that I didn't need Branking anymore because I was using that for avoid being frozen. So that meant I got to change over to Soul of Lunaris. I could have also taken Soul of Akari. Those would have been both fine options. But here I got, while mapping, there's always going to be at least 8 things around me. I got 8% movement speed, 8% more physical damage reduction, 6% reduced elemental damage taken, avoid projectiles while chained, and 10% chance to avoid all projectiles. Great. So now we get to do those things. Then we've got Flesh and Stone. 2 parts of this aura. One of them is an aura. While in Bloodstance, aura makes enemies take 21% increased physical damage from hits. If I was to try and use that part, the reduced aura effect would ruin me. But I don't care about that part. I only care about the Sand Stance part. And that one, while in Sand Stance, buff makes you take 20% less damage from enemies in the aura. Now, it's got a pretty small range, but it's buff that makes you take 20% less damage from enemies in the aura. The wording there is weird, but what that ends up being is Increased area of effect or aura size would change the size of the buff, but the effect of the buff does not change with aura effect, meaning I can't buff it, I can't make it any stronger, but it also means the reduced effect of auras in my map doesn't make it weaker. So anything in there getting less damage taken. I also kept my Tempest Shield, but moved it into a ring, into an unset ring, and that let me put on a Chaos Golem, which with the Ashes has 50% increased effect. That rounds down, so it only ends up being 2% more, but that's still 7% more physical damage reduction. And that let me put Feeding Frenzy in. Now, I also went with Despair on hit as a fracture there, so that I could keep my own curse. I've given the Asenath Gentle Touch to the Animate Guardian. So, still got both of my curses that way. The next degenerate min-max thing that I did was we fractured a temple ring. This is getting ridiculous. You don't need to go this far. I'm just showing you can. You don't need to. We fractured a temple affix for the mana to get 3 mana gain on hit. That freed up a jewel socket so that I could put another abyssal jewel in. Why are my abyssal jewels so important? Because we also fractured every single abyssal jewel to have enemies withered by you have -2 to all resistance. That is all resistance, not all elemental resistance. So it's actually -2 to chaos for us. So we've got life, flat chaos, and poison chance, and weather on every single jewel. So I've got 2 there, 2 in my belt, and 1 there, and 1 here in my weapon. In the weapon one, I didn't need any more poison chance, so instead of that, we took minions leech 0.4% of damage as life. That saved us the minion leech node, so we got a passive point back. The only downside of doing it this way is that you can't have multi-mod and trigger, because multi-mod, trigger, abyssal socket, and attack speed are all suffixes. So in order to get the abyssal socket here, all you had to do was hollow fossiled a sword and then fracture it. And then once that was fractured, go about crafting the normal way, essence spam for minion damage, annul down, hit the trigger, all good. Again, this is overkill. You absolutely don't need to do this. Right, so the next things, we got Unnerve as an implicit here. That doesn't affect the poison, but it does affect the hit component. The hit component of Holy Relic is still quite high, and it's still pretty good. I also got 15% chance to maim on the other side. Doesn't affect our damage, but maim's a nice debuff to have. It slows them more on top of them getting hit by temp chains, on top of them getting hit by Aspect of the Spider. So everything around me moves quite slowly. So that's cool. Over here, new boots. I'm still doing the immune to chill thing. I don't care about it being a craft because I whirling blades everywhere anyway. So just new boots that have Aspect of the Spider. Right, the next thing. The next overkill thing we did. There's a few ways to do this, but it is pretty good. Having a level 25 raised Spectre Gem lets me get a 3rd Spectre. That lets me have all 3 of the Spectres I wanted while keeping Decay Ward. Decay Ward is making all my minions very, very tanky. I have not lost an Animate Guardian. I've been doing 12 mod max effect tier 16s with Delirium and everything. I've been using Animate Guardian of the Smiting, who has less health, loses all of his health, but has better coverage for his curse. And he hasn't taken any damage. I've done some tier 17s. He hasn't taken any damage. He's been fine the whole time. That is because of all the extra levels and keeping Decay Ward. So, how do we get to level 25? Few ways you can do it. The way I did it is a corrupted Joffrey's Crest with +2 to socketed minion gems. And I put my minion in here, mixing that with the +1 all level that's on my amulet and the +1 to all minion skill gems on my stupidly overpowered shield, which is also overkill and absolutely unnecessary. But between the +1 there, the +1 there, and the +2 here, and getting a level 21 raised Spectre, it ends up being level 25. So I get my 3rd Spectre. My specters will all be in the path of building, but they are the perfect hulking miscreant, perfect forest warrior, and perfect warlord. So we can go through those in a minute. Anyway, things that I had left to do. I still only have a level 3 in power. I could easily get that to level 4 for an extra level. I still don't have a corrupted Dialas. I want to get a +1 all corrupted Dialas, which would bring my holy relic from level 21 to level 22, or up 1 again, but would also bring the empower up 1. So a +1 all would give me 2 levels, 1 to the holy relic and 1 to the empower, which would give me 1 more to the holy relic, which would bring me to 30. And then also the extra empower would bring me to level 31. So that could be really cool. I could go further with that. I also never upgraded from my 95% belt, though in the path of building, I fixed it to be a 100% belt because I absolutely should have done that. That was pure laziness and I forgot. And if we're looking at a min-maxed version, you absolutely should have a 100% belt, especially when you're looking at enemies with it have -2 resistance. Anyone who followed the min-max from last league will know that instead of this wither, I did the maim versions. And I like tattooed 1 chance to maim on, and you used enemies maim by you take 5% increased damage. This is almost exactly to the point the same amount of damage. The only reason I went with wither this time is because I went with maim last time. They're both the same amount of damage. If you're min-maxing the bullshit, I don't care if you use all of one, all of the other, or mix them, doesn't matter. One of those 2 affixes is how you bring it to the bullshit min-max stage. Okay, other things that are left is I have not replaced this cluster jewel, which is a pretty average cluster jewel here. This one's not great, probably should have replaced it. The one I have up here was pretty decent, not perfect, but it was pretty decent. I would love to have increased effect instead of that flat energy shield, but otherwise that would have been great. But this one's definitely good enough. If this one was better, if this cluster jewel was better, I would be putting my extra points there right now instead of here. Level 99, so I've taken these 2. I'm only, I don't know whether there's 20% into the next level or so. So I will just take Righteous Army with the next one for 20% damage and a little bit of regen. That's great, but if I had a better cluster, I would not have gone back up this side with these last 3 points. I would have taken the back 3 of this cluster. Okay, so coming over to the path of building, I do have the config set up. I am wearing the Kingmaker now. We have the Culling Strike. We have the you can apply an additional curse. We also have some defensive debuffs. You know, I can't be crit, I'm crit immune, that sort of things from the garb. I will put the Animate Guardian gear in the notes section. I will also put the Spectres names in the notes section, so you can check what those are. We've got 4 stacks of Spider. You can see our max fizz hit is nearly 20k, which is very reasonable. Our recovery is still insane. Our max hit to everything else is pretty good. We do have a great amount of life here. Fantastic. We've still managed to get 16,000 armor, which doesn't sound like a lot because it's not, but we did it without determination, and we get the less damage taken from, we get all the physical damage reductions, and we get the less damage taken from our non-aura mana reservations before the armor happens. So the amount of armor I have is still relevant because of all those less damage taken things that we've done beforehand. And our DPS, according to Path of Building, is sitting at nearly 17 mil. And as we all know, that is woefully underestimating my damage. I would have to guess I'm somewhere around 65 mil, maybe. Also, I forgot to put a stack of poisons on, so it's actually more like 18.8. You have to put stack of poisons on because Vile Toxin doesn't automatically put it there, and it's 5% more hit, up to 9, etc. So yeah, we're at 18.8 here. That is woefully underestimating it. And what's really important is, if without even touching the rest of the support gems, if I got a level 4 in power, it would go to 21, and then if I got a +1, it would level this and this. If I got a +1 Dialas, and that would put me at 25 without even worrying about the rest of my support gems, which could all level up again. And if you got them at level 6, they would all end up being +1. So you would end up at 26.5 in Path of Building. That would have to be somewhere close to 100 million, which is pretty good when you're this tanky. But I didn't go that far, so we're going to leave it all exactly where it is to share. But there is still plenty more to go from here. The forbidden jewels I picked was just getting 4 in here. So I ended up getting Mistress of Sacrifice because it was the cheapest, but I could have taken Mistress, Plague Bearer, Bone Barrier, or Unnatural, and it would have been the same. Plague Bearer is the extra one that you could absolutely give up. My favorite one is actually Void Beacon. It's significantly better, especially for clear. Not for clear, sorry. Especially for single target and Maven stuff. My second favorite one is Profane Bloom, which I also didn't get because it would just help you. That's the clear one. It would just cause the pop explosions everywhere. Profane Bloom is the one if you want to giga map clear. Void Beacon's the absolute best one if you want to do incredibly hard single target stuff. But these are all significantly cheaper. So I went with the cheaper option because it's been a struggle to make money this league. Took me a lot longer to min-max this build than I thought it would. But that is the end of it. That is the end of all I'm doing with the Holy Relic build this league. I hope everybody's enjoyed it a lot. I've certainly enjoyed it a lot. It has done absolutely every bit of content. I know for sure I'll be playing this again. It's been a super large amount of fun. We're going to find some other stuff to do now. So that is all I have. I will see everybody next time. Goodbye.